input? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public input at this time. We have the appointment of Bryce Anderson to the Planning Commission. Had the chance with Councilman McComber to go through a lot of applicants for the city, for people volunteering to be on the Planning Commission. It's great. 8 years ago, we seldom got people with experience. We've got a lot of residents that are very interested in our community. Bryce would like to invite you up to the hot podium. Don't get too comfortable in a seat. Do you want to tell us a little bit about you and your background for the council that hasn't had a chance to meet you?
Sure. I'm Bryce Anderson. I live up off of the Grandview neighborhood. This is my wife over here, Cherie, and we are the parents of soon-to-be 5 children. We actually found out the gender of number 5 today, this afternoon. It's going to be a boy. We're thrilled because we've just had 3 girls before that. So, I live here in Saratoga. I live here with a couple of my brothers as well. We love the area, and we anticipate more family moving here, but we are thrilled to be involved in part of the Planning Commission and help where we can and lift where we can. And I currently work for the LDS Church. I work in a department called the Priesthood and Family Department, where I'm a product manager, and a lot of the products I work with are curriculum and leadership and training products. I did get a master's in public administration from BYU a couple of years ago, and so that's probably the extent of my experience. I don't have any formal classical training in planning, city planning, but I've been exposed just enough to be maybe dangerous, I guess. So, but yeah, we're grateful to be part of the team here and help where we can.
Councilman McComber, do you have anything before we present it to the council?
No, I agree. We had some great candidates. We liked the fact that you were crazy enough to have an education in this area. It's a direction that we like to see, obviously on the commission. We thought that was really a value. And then even just as you answered questions, you understood the role of the Planning Commission quite clearly as a recommending body to the city council, interpreting code, and your desire to understand the direction that the city is wanting to go, and then putting that forward. So that really stood out to us, and we appreciate that. So I know that's something that the council is particularly, we want to make sure that any planning commissioner understands that role. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from the council?
Well, that was going to be my question, but since Councilman McComber just put the words literally into your mouth, I don't know that it really does that much good. So I'm rather frustrated, actually, Mayor, because we got 0 information. We got no resume, we got no information on any of the other candidates. So I'm sure that you're a fantastic candidate, but I have no information. So where this is by consent of council, I can't vote yes on this because I don't have any information. So, like I said, I'm sure you're a fantastic candidate, and that may be the case, and I may be the only one, but, what are your thoughts on Planning Commission? Why do you want to be on Planning Commission, and what do you think the Planning Commission's purpose is?
Yeah, that's a good question. A Planning Commission and being on the Planning Commission, my role is like Councilmember McComber said, it's not to push any formal agenda, but to do the due diligence, do some of the due diligence for you, and make a recommendation by applying the rules and applying the code and the ordinances, and presenting up in a way that's informative for you to make the best decisions in your role as city councilman. And so I think as a candidate, I'm good at building consensus, good at working in teams and reaching over divided and I'm good at working with people who maybe don't see things quite the same way that I do, and finding common ground and finding a compromise. And I don't know. I hope that answers your question or reserves any concerns, but I'm excited to just help and get involved where I can. It's a desire to just to serve in the community. There's no other real incentive for me to come other than to be involved and to serve. So I'm excited and happy to be here if that's the case. So.
Okay. With that, in fairness, we have done this process this way multiple times.
We had information last time, and we had asked for that before.
So with that, I will entertain a motion.
I guess before the motion, it did arrive late, but we did, they did put the resume in.
When?
It was late.
It wasn't here this morning when I looked before I went to work.
Yeah, I want to say maybe around 1-ish or something like that.
Okay,
But yeah, so, I mean, because I did see your email requesting that.
yeah.
And, but yeah, I guess as far as like, we would like to be able to review that, but knowing that the two of you sat in and discussed that, and you're sending a recommendation for this individual, that I moved to approve the appointment of Bryce Anderson, the Planning Commission Resolution R18-38 dated today.
Okay, I have a first from Councilman Podeska.
I'll second
I
that.
have a second from Councilman McComber. Any further discussion on the motion?
My vote will be strictly based on procedure, the fact that just like any other applicant, we did not have the information in time, and I don't think that we should pass this.
Okay, we'll do a roll call. Councilwoman Barch?
Nay.
McComber?
Aye.
Podeska?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
Motion passes 3-1. Thank you for your willingness to serve. Okay.
I appreciate your willingness to volunteer for the city, and I wish that you didn't have to be a part of that. That should have been done somewhat behind the scenes. I know that she requested that, but it's not appropriate to put you through that, and I apologize. For myself, not on behalf of the council.
Okay. We will go back to the presentation of the Police Department promotions for Corporal Zach Robinson. Sorry, Chief had to leave. So I will read this on behalf of our chief. Oh, yes. Got to get somebody else to video for you. Certificate of promotion to Sergeant, the Chief of Police for the Saratoga Springs Police Department, has reposed special trust and confidence in the loyalty, valor, fidelity, and abilities of Zach Robinson. In view of these qualities and his demonstrated potential for increased responsibility, he is promoted to the rank of Sergeant effective July 1st, 2018. Given under my hand this, the third day of July 2018, in the city of Saratoga Springs, Utah, Andrew Burton, Chief of Police. You've been with our department for a long time, so this is great to see this promotion. Welcome. Congratulations. We have the badge for you to swap out. If you want to turn around. Congratulations. Okay, thank you very much. We have the appointment of Mark Christensen to the Timpanogos Special Service District, TSSD, Resolution R18-39.
Yeah, I'm chuckling that I'm even asking this, but would formally request that the council reappoint me to the TSSD board. We did this about a year ago, and the county informed us that I was just technically filling the remainder of Spencer's term, which expired earlier this year, and so this would be reappointing me for the residual four-year term that I've currently been serving in. The way that the ordinance is written is I continue to serve until you appoint someone else. So if you'd like to, give someone else that opportunity, you're certainly welcome to do so. Otherwise, I'll continue to serve on the Sewer District Board. Mayor and Council, thank you very much. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions on this appointment?
I just have, is this the one that I'm back up on?
I believe you are back up on 911 dispatch.
Okay. All right.
They don't allow proxy votes on this board. There's also, I think, 13 members on this board, so I don't think they need many backups.
Okay. I will entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve the appointment of Mark Christensen to Timpanogos Special Service District Resolution R18-39 dated today.
I have a first from Councilwoman Barch.
Second?
Second from Councilman Podeska. Any further discussion on the motion? Roll call. Councilman Porter?
Aye.
Podeska?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Barch?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have reports. Councilman Porter, you had sent me a message, you had a report for tonight?
Yeah, I just wanted to, there was recently a fire near our neighborhood, and I wanted to thank, first off, the Saratoga Springs Fire and Rescue for their quick response, as well as all the supporting agencies that helped with that. And then I also think it's important that we remind residents that if there is a wildfire, that they're not trained firefighters and that they need to, in order for their own safety and for the ability of the firefighters to respond appropriately, they need to, not try and fight the fires up in the hills. I guess we had some trouble with the fire response at being able to get there because the roads were blocked with residents there trying to put the fire out. And while I think we all appreciate the volunteer spirit of our fellow residents, the firefighters are equipped and trained to handle a wildfire, and so I think we need to leave that to them. We can protect our own property, turn on our sprinklers, hose down our roof, but I would just encourage the members of the city not to go out into the hills trying to fight wildfire, because it can become a disaster very quickly. So again, I just really want to thank the fire department for their response and for their quick action, and then just caution people to stay safe. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other council reports?
Just want to request if staff can please send an updated Utah Lake Commission alternate for both the TAC and for the regular commission to Sam Rager of the commission. That'd be great. They just need an updated list.
Okay, Councilman, anybody other?
Yeah, so actually, a question and a report. Quick question on what Councilman Porter reported on. And this is to staff, with people turning on their sprinklers during a fire, does that reduce pressure to the hydrants?
Different systems, actually.
Okay.
Secondary system is its completely own separate system. Culinary system is what we use for fire flows. And obviously, we want people to be safe. So garden hoses are great, but they're probably not going to keep up if you have a really intense fire that's coming at you.
Okay, I just wanted that clarified. And then reports, we met on the police court building to select contractors that have submitted their proposals. And I'm not sure if they've all been contacted yet. And so, but I mean, out of the 5 or 6 that we're reviewing, just great work experience that would relate to this building, as well as the staff that they'd have involved with it. So very confident in knowing that they're going to do a great job on the building.
Okay. You good? Okay. Is there anything from you, Mark? Or
No, not at this time.
okay. The adoption of the storm drain impact facilities plan.
Mayor and Council, pleased to present to you updates to these 2 impact fee facilities plans. These updates were done by Bone and Collins and Associates, specifically led by Keith Larson, professional engineer from that firm, and I'll turn the time over to him.
Yep, you bet.
Be able to see a screen here. So I understand that you have received the materials ahead of time, and so I'm not going to give a presentation per se. I just had 2 quick slides for the benefit of the public and maybe just to orient everybody. You did a storm drain and sewer impact fee facilities plan and impact fee analysis in 2013. And so since that time, with the city growing and changing as much as it does and has over the last 5 years, it seemed prudent and necessary to do an update to that plan. So just by way of information, the major changes were we updated development projections to reflect all the things that have happened over the last 5 years and new planning information. We updated construction costs. Back in 2013, we projected what costs would be for a number of projects. We came back and we updated those based on actual costs, as well as updating future costs based on the current economy and construction bids that we're seeing. You have on the sewer side, you have the Posey Lift Station that serves the about the north half of the city. That had a reimbursement agreement that a buyout was negotiated in association with that lift station. And so that was able to be incorporated and revised in the plan. City Council recently adopted some finance plans associated with construction of some major sewer outfalls, and so that plan was updated to reflect what was decided there. Last 2 things is there was previously we had separated the north and the south area, and so those were combined because with the buyout of the Posey Lift Station agreement, there was no longer a major difference in cost between those 2, so they were combined into a single service area. And then very last, in 2017, I came and gave a presentation on some changes, and so we amended, we took that amendment and we incorporated it into the new study. And so with that, the only other thing to show here is what the changes were. And so essentially on stormwater, this is a charge in dollars per gross acres of development. That increased by $365 per acre from 1776 to 2141. And then for sewer, the north was about $1,000, the south was about $650. Those are combined into a single fee that went to $838. So there's a slight increase overall, but it's actually a little bit of a decrease in the northern area as a result of that Posey Lift Station buyout. So with that general orientation, I'll answer any questions that you have.
Questions? Councilman Porter?
No, I'm good.
Okay. And I will entertain a motion if there's no questions. Oh, yes, it's a public hearing. Sorry, we'll open this up. Public hearing. Is anybody here to discuss the adoption of the sewer and storm drain impact fees? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I'll move that we adopt the sewer and storm drain impact fee facilities plan impact fee analysis and amended impact fees ordinance 18-16 dated today and 18-17 dated today.
Okay, I have a first from Councilwoman Barch.
A second.
A second, Councilman Podeska. Any further? Okay, roll call. Podeska. Aye. McComber.
Aye.
Barch.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We have the Saratoga 7 LDS Meeting House Community and Village Plan, Chad Spencer applicant.
Good? Okay. So this falls in the planned community zone, and so they had to do a community plan and village plan, and they are proposing one church building. However, we needed to see how the roads lay out and how utilities lay out, and we needed to see the big picture with this particular plan. So they did have to do the community plan and village plan, and then you'll see a site plan after this. And so here are kind of the details, you know, related to parking and landscaping and open space. And then, I mean, really, if you have any questions, I think that's maybe the best approach, but these are the proposed elevations. And then it did go to Planning Commission, and they forwarded a positive recommendation. And we're recommending approval with conditions. So, can you advance it? It's not going for me. Okay, I thought we had a motion slide in here for you. There we go, thank you. Okay, so then we're just recommending approval with the findings and conditions in the staff report.
Councilman McComber.
I just wanted to, I know the applicant isn't technically here, but if you could forward, I don't know.
They are.
Oh, are they here? Oh, I can't
Well,
see.
yeah, it's Chad Spencer with
Okay.
EA Architecture is the applicant for this one.
Okay. I just appreciate that it didn't come in trying to get rezoned to the R next to it, where we had a couple other chapels that were done that way, and we asked them not to do that anymore. If it's on the plan in that land, that they come in with the planned community zone requirements, and they did. It's a little bit more work for them, I understand. I feel like the little postmarks on, for those in the audience, it's next to a residential in this big field, and before they like to try and just suck it into that neighborhood and do a little pop out. But this time they actually did do the planned community zone submittal. So I just really appreciate that. And if you can make sure that not just this applicant, but the church as well, the master applicant, understands that I appreciate that they listened to us and they did it this way this time. So, and I don't have any problems. They've done this a few times in the city.
Okay, Councilman Porter.
I don't have anything.
Okay, then I'll entertain a motion. Or do you have
Okay,
something?
so.
Okay.
Couple of items. First of all, on the table where we get the densities that we've been given, the DEP has been given, can we get, when we have these kinds of presentations, just an update as that gets drawn down where we're at?
Okay,
It'd be really
yeah.
nice to set just for future. And then just some confusion on the staff report under pedestrian circulation. It says that there's a 5-foot wide sidewalk installed along the east frontage of the meeting house site, connected to the sidewalk located along Grand Sierra Way, and then a 10-foot wide sidewalk trail will be installed along the entire north frontage, which is the Market Street side. When you look at the actual site plans, it actually states 5 and 5. So I wanted to get clarification on that. As
Okay.
to what's supposed to be done along Market Street, and if it's going to be a 5-foot, like they say in the exhibit, or if a 10-foot, like is in our staff report and other places.
So it needs to match our adopted cross-section. Do you recall what's on that one, Gordon? Okay, it's a 10, so it'll be updated to a 10, right?
So when they come in with their,
Okay, so we'll coordinate all of the exhibits so they're all a 10.
okay, so yeah, so just make sure that that's consistent, that would be great. And then just a question on the sign that's shown on this, I assume, is the sign that's built into the side of the building? And the monument sign will be forthcoming to the
It usually
staff?
is, so it's usually just the
Yeah,
one
that
on the
one.
building.
Okay. I didn't know which one it was specifically addressing, because in the same paragraph it mentioned both of them. Just remember that I don't think we do it on the building itself, maybe we do, but for sure on the monument that the address is included. And since I didn't know which one this was referring to, I just wanted to make sure that was clear. Those are the only comments that I had on it.
Great.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, I will entertain a motion.
Let's see. I move to approve Saratoga's 7 LDS Meeting House Community and Village Plan, applicant Chad Spencer, Grand Sarah Way, ordinance 18-18 dated today.
I'll second.
First from Councilman Podeska.
I was just going to add along with the staff's findings and conditions.
I'll second that.
I have a first from Councilman Podeska. I have a second from Councilman McComber. Any further discussion on the motion? Porter?
Aye.
Barch?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Podeska?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have the franchise agreement with Utopia Fiber, ordinance 18-19.
Mayor and council, this is just another franchise agreement that is basically identical to the ones that we've done in the past. The one difference here, and I'm not sure if we have, do we have a representative from Utopia? Okay, so the one difference with this one is they had requested, and they want to work with the League of Cities and Towns on this, they'd requested a franchise agreement based on the amount of footage, basically on a per foot basis, the amount of encroachment into the city right away. And that's to avoid any issues with what they believe is a requirement under federal law. I don't agree with that opinion, but they did ask that we discuss that and hear their proposal. And we based, if you notice in that 2.3 section, it still says it's subject 100% to the city's legislative discretion, whether or not we renegotiate that. But apparently they've been having quite a few discussions with the Utah League of Cities and Towns about having a statewide system of imposing franchise fees this way. And one of the reasons why is because we've seen because just the nature of these services changing to internet services only. So it's gone from telecommunications now to internet-based, many of these services. A lot of cities are losing out on the Municipal Telecommunications License Tax Act, or the tax, not the act, but the tax, because they're going from telecommunications now to internet services, and there's all this gray area in between. And so they made that request. It seemed like it was reasonable, especially as they're working with the League of Cities and Towns. Eventually, I think their hope is to run some legislation that resolves this kind of gray area. And so based on that, I'm comfortable recommending that the council approve this franchise agreement because it is, like I mentioned, paragraph 2.3 that talks about a renegotiation of that, leaves it up to the city council's discretion. So if you have any questions
That's for
from me-
future negotiation?
Yeah, so they needed to get it in the ground. They've got a couple customers, and they're welcome to come up and explain this to the council, but they've got a few customers, the schools, the elementary schools, they're running lines right now to those schools, and so they needed to get in the ground now before school opens. And so they've got those contracts with the schools. They're agreeing to abide by the terms of the franchise agreement, which is basically the same as what we've done in the past. But what they would like to leave open the door, leave open the possibility of renegotiating that based on a per foot encroachment into the city rights of way. And of course, like I mentioned, subject to the city council's legislative discretion. So you still could say yes or no without any repercussions.
So on the per foot encroachment, I guess I'm just kind of confused about how that works exactly, because if I'm not mistaken, these all have to be in the right of way. So what would be the difference, if you can explain that to us?
Okay, so right now, you have the municipal telecommunications license tax, and that's 3.5% of the gross revenue for those services, and that's imposed and charged by the Utah State Tax Commission. What we've been doing, because we've had these internet service providers going in our right-of-way and using our roads, they're not staying exclusively in the public utility easements. We can charge them basically a license fee for being in those roads. And what we've done in the past is we've done a mix of either parallel conduit that's installed or a license fee that's the same as basically equivalent to the 3.5%. So if they're providing internet services that aren't subject to the Municipal Telecommunications License Tax Act, they still pay the 3.5%. So there's a little bit of there's kind of a gray area about that. Utopia is saying, well, it should be based on our actual encroachment in the right-of-way. We think you have the right to do that, but it should be based more on the actual encroachment in the right-of-way. If we can go in the public utility easement, for instance, because we're a public utility company, we have the rights to do that. It's similar to, if you remember, we had the big phase of the wireless internet 10 years ago or so. I know that there's still a few providers out there, but they would come to cities asking attached to their light poles, their street lights and things like that. And so we could charge a pole attachment fee for that. And it's the same thinking with the license fee for being in our roads on those non-telecommunication services. So they felt that that was a better approach to charge it on a per foot basis. And we'd like to look at that and run the numbers and see if it's fairly equivalent to the 3.5%. The initial numbers show that it probably is, so it's about the same. It's going to be about the same as the 3.5%, but it seems to be it's more representative of the actual encroachment in the right-of-way. So I think it's a good approach. I don't.
So when you say per foot, you're talking about per foot within the road, not in the PUE?
Within the road, yeah, within the city rights-of-way, the road, streets, easements, not the public utility easements. So anyway, like I said, it didn't seem like it was problematic for us because the city council could either approve that or not approve it. And so you still have that legislative discretion. We'd make sure that the city's made whole, but we think that could be a good approach moving forward with future franchise agreements within the city.
I move to approve the franchise agreement with Utopia Ordinance 18-19 dated today I don't think there's any findings and conditions, correct? It's just an ordinance.
Just in the resolution or the ordinance that approves it.
Second.
Okay, first from Councilman McComber, second from Councilman Podeska. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, Podeska?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Barch?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have the fee schedule update, Planning Department Neighborhood Plan Fee and Subdivision Exception Fee.
All right, we have added 2 new applications, and that's the reason for the change. So the neighborhood plan that you're all aware of is a result of the MR zone, and then the subdivision exception allows a developer to create a meets and bounds parcel and exchange property in anticipation of development. So we're experiencing that with Mount Saratoga, where they've got several phases in the works, and then before those plats are recorded, they purchase those phases. So they have the whole thing under contract and they purchase it in phases. And then it will help with other developments that have similar situations. We do see that a lot, and this will allow them to create a legal parcel, because otherwise it's an illegal subdivision. So that's the reason for the 2 applications. The fee for the subdivision application or subdivision exception is proposed to be $200 per parcel. That allows us to review it and then send you to take that to get recorded, and then they'll pay the actual recording fees. The neighborhood plan, we are proposing that be an at-cost fee, meaning that staff would track their hours and that we would bill the applicant the at-cost fee. There's some background on that, but I mean, I think you're aware of it, but if not, I can answer any questions you have.
Okay. Questions from the council? Michael McCormick?
Is there any way, based on the application, you'd be able to give them an estimate at the beginning when they're putting it in, saying, you know, based on this type of neighborhood we've seen in the past, we estimate, you know, on average between 20 and 40 hours or 20 and 30 hours, or because I get where during public input was stated that it's hard to plan, or we have like, it's typically this much, but we do it on an hourly basis, so it can be plus or minus $500, or, so what has been your experience? What have you seen?
we see such a large variety in the amount of time we spend on the community plans and village plans. They all come in with different pieces of information, and they all need different levels of review. So we don't have a good estimate as far as what that, fee might be, because they're all so different. Part of the background behind it was when we did work on Smart Code, for something like 2 years. And then at the end of that, the applicant disputed the fee, and we had to go back and track all our hours and everything, and it came to light for us that we actually undercharged. But we don't really have a good way to estimate it. We're welcome to consider feedback.
Yeah, as a council, you heard from Priscilla earlier tonight, if you want us to come back with a recommended fee, we certainly can do that. We felt like this was the best way for those applications that go quicker. They would pay based on the time that was consumed. Those that are more complex would, we would capture that cost either way. So it's a preference thing, and, we do track our time in CityWorks, but again, each community plan, each village plan is so vastly different, depending on, the difficulties of engineering or other things. It just, there's just a pretty big swing on the time that it's going to take.
Is this something we're looking at changing for community plan and village plan, then also just doing strictly at cost?
We have started doing that as well. When we adopted this fee schedule change last year, that was part of the change, that those be billed at cost as well.
Okay, so people have been dealing with this already, then this isn't a completely new concept?
No, not yet. So the fee got changed, but planning staff didn't update the forms. So the fee got changed, but I'm not sure that we were all informed. So now that we've gone through this, we've changed our forms as well. So it'll be from here forward.
So if I can continue, I personally don't have a problem with this approach because I think, you should pay for what you consume. I think that it is difficult at times for people to plan, but I think it also encourages good applications and them taking the time ahead of time to make sure that there's few variances, few exceptions that are going to create more and more time for you to review as a planning department. And then obviously I've always had issues with our engineering department doing the engineering for development. I think it's actually subsidizing private sector, which makes it unfair for other developments because they don't get that subsidy. And so this will be a way that we can recover and make it a little bit more fair, that those applicants who are leveraging our engineers and their expertise, they'll be paying for that. So I think I was just hoping that we could give some kind of estimate, but it makes sense that it just so varies and it's so much different types of applications that it's almost impossible to do so. But I think as long as we're very clear up front that you only will be charged for what you consume, and the higher quality application that you provide, the cheaper it will be. And then it also makes it fair for that simple applicant who's coming in who doesn't have a lot. They're not going to have to pay as much because they're not consuming as much service. So I think this is actually a more fair approach. I would hate to subsidize the smaller developer to pay for the larger, because if we find that average amount and it's 20% higher than that smaller to offset that mega development. So I think this is the right approach for me. Thanks.
You have a comment?
I just say I completely agree with Councilman McComber. I think that is overall the best policy. Hopefully as we get going, we can start to estimate a little bit better how much we think it might cost them, and based on the size. So it might be a little bit more difficult in the beginning, but I think overall it'll be more fair in the end. I agree with Councilman McComber on that.
Okay. Are there key indicators that would raise the price or make a project go longer in that phase? That could maybe in the application saying, like, if you at least have these things, it's going to streamline it more, or this is what delays it.
Yeah, with every submittal from, a signed submittal to a community plan to an annexation, we get different levels of quality. So honestly, the better the initial quality is, the faster it's going to go. If our reviews take, 10 hours for each of us to do a review versus 3 hours because of the quality of the submittal, it's going to cost more. So we do see that with every type of application, different levels of quality with the initial submittal.
So when you say levels of quality, are there things like on the application that you can maybe point out of saying that if these applications have this kind of quality to it, then expect a normal kind of review?
So we do a submittal meeting with them where we just check for completeness, but what we don't check for is how thorough was that? We take their application and it's considered a complete application when they've checked the boxes saying they've got the transportation studies or whatever the specific requirements are for that particular application, which is great, but now all of a sudden we start going through it and we go, wow, you copied and pasted this from somewhere else, then that's just not going to work. I think the thing that increases complexity immensely, and I think we're not going to have this so much with the new zone that we've created, is we're sticking to Title 19, and we're not deviating from Title 19, whereas with community plans and village plans, we've had a lot more latitude for the applicant to try and write their own code, and we've seen that those things just kind of spiral us off into very long bifurcated processes. And so I think that where this new zone is really focused on, this mixed-use zone is really focused on staying too close to Title 19 with the exceptions of, we've encountered as we start to densify, some of our engineering standards or setbacks or something like that have problems. So those are those small tweaks that we would expect based on the constraints of those types of projects, but it's not a rewrite of the code. So I think it's going to be a lot easier and simpler, and our hope is that it's going to be a streamlined process just in and of itself rather than deviating from code. And we noticed that with like some of the Boyer applications for their community plans and village plans, they've largely stuck close to Title 19 for our commercial development with few minor exceptions, and those have gone through very quickly. I think the more complex many thousand, housing developments are much more complex and much more difficult to work our way through.
So in general, you're saying that the closer they stick to Title 19, the quicker the process will be.
Typically, that's how it's been. Yeah, but in this mixed zone, that's kind of the rule as opposed to the exception, what we've been seeing in community and village plans. So we felt like we would see a streamlined process even from that standpoint.
Thanks.
Okay, any other comments? Councilman Porter?
Yeah, I had a few. I agree largely with what's already been said in regards to it covering the cost. I couldn't. I'm assuming that was Sarah doing the presentation.
Right.
I couldn't quite hear her responses to, because I'm looking at the fee report that was included in the packet, and I'm seeing like the community plan and village plan. While it's kind of a prorated rate, it's not an at-cost rate, and so I'm just, I guess if you could clarify, what are we charging a cost at the current on those as well, or?
Yes, we will be charging those at cost as well.
Okay. No, I think that charging the cost is where we want to be. As was said, we don't want to be subsidizing the developers' projects. So I think that's important that they're paying what it costs to review their application. In reviewing this this item, one thing that stood out to me, looking at the rate structure we have, is that city council approval is a large driver of some of these. The requirement for city council meetings is a large driver of the cost for a lot of these development fees. And just with the new appointment of a planning commissioner, I think it's important that we get to a point where we can leave more of this with the planning commission, both for the benefit of the city as well as for the benefit of the development community. I think we're making progress on that front, but I just, as we're having future meetings, I think we need to keep in mind that, in some of the instances, the fact that it comes to the city council is a third of the development fees.
And Councilman Porter, just real quick, I'm sorry you're not here to get eye contact, But I believe that, I looked into that too, it would just transfer the fees to the planning commission, because a lot of the fees is the mailing and all of that happens as required for public input. And so, as I looked into it, it really is just transferring those fees, so it's not like they really would save. But to your point, it is always smart for us to look at the different aspects and where the approvals are happening and how we can streamline the process, but then still keep an eye on what's happening in the city, so I agree.
Well, and I can see that point, that there would be some costs that are going to be incurred no matter what. I think that there would still be some savings, just the staff time preparing for council meetings, stuff like that I think it's redundant, because a lot of these things go to the planning commission anyway, and so, anyway. It's just something to keep in mind, but I'm in favor of going with this at cost for the neighborhood plan, and the other fee is fine with me as well.
Okay. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve the fee schedule update, community plan development resolution R18-40 dated today.
First from
second.
Councilwoman Barch, second from Councilwoman McComber. Any further discussion on the motion? Podeska? Aye. Porter?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Barch?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
If you don't mind, I move to approve the June 19, 2018 minutes. I didn't see any submission for any changes, so good job. There are no changes.
I have a first from Councilman McComber, second from Councilman Podeska. Any further discussion? Porter?
Aye.
Podeska? Aye. McComber?
Aye.
Barch?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Are we still doing clear sky tonight, Mark?
Yeah, just real quickly, unfortunately, I'm not seeing the person for the presentation on this, but, we probably had some miscommunication on that. What you've got is the MOU, which we've talked a little bit about, and I know that some of you have been contacted regarding this. This is, the proposal on this is that we enter into a memorandum of understanding with Clear Sky, which would allow them to basically put in place a business model whereby they would begin processing our trash. They claim that there is some phenomenal technology coming out of Europe, specifically in Germany, that would take this, take basically a direct haul of our garbage. They would then, dry it over time, then they would go through several processes to sort materials. So they would sort glass, they would sort aluminum, they'd sort metals, plastics, different things, ultimately coming down to, and I can't remember the exact name of it, but basically organic materials that are flammable. And then they would take those materials and then compress them and then sell those to coal-fired plants, and it would actually replace coal. And they found in Europe that this technology is working and it's replacing coal, basically making garbage a fully recycled product. Now, they've given kind of a presentation on that. There is a lot of questions that are out there. We did do some research, Kevin did some research, and the concern that we've got is for us to get out of our contract with North Point, we would need to notify them by December 1st of 2018, and that would then trigger the notice period that would get us out 13 months later. So that's the only real issue. The problem is if we leave North Point, then in essence we're walking away from any asset value that we have at North Point, which includes, over this last several years, they've been, buying infrastructure, they've been buying equipment, they've been buying things, and as members of that district, there's a capital investment.
We invested into the landfill. We've got 50 years of airspace that we've purchased as part of that consortium.
Right, and I was going to that, which is the consortium has purchased some airspace down south at, is it Bayview? Bayview landfill. And so if we leave North Point, which we can do, if we leave North Point, then if we were to go back to North Point, so let's hypothetically say Clear Skies could not perform based on the MOU, and they didn't have an alternative for us, then we would have to buy our way back into the district, which could be an expensive thing. Now, they've offered to post a bond so that it would cover any costs associated with that. The MOU that we've got, Kevin would like to make some tweaks on it, so if you'd like us to move forward with that, we're happy to do that. We are a little bit concerned that we don't lose our asset value just by entering into the MOU. We would like to make sure that the technology truly is there. This is a great technology. It's very impressive if you watch the press releases and things, and we're very interested in obviously looking for a better way to handle our garbage. However, there's just some questions that we would like to get resolved over time.
I would like to, before we have that discussion, have us invite Mark Huyer in. He was the gentleman with North Point who did some research on this, because it's legislated, it's not profitable. When I was back in DC 5 years ago for the International Trash Conference, cities paying $100 a ton to landfill garbage said this wasn't cost effective. We're the cheapest state in the nation for garbage at $23-something a ton, and we bought 50 years worth of airspace. If they can't make it pencil at 100 in a liberal state of recycling, how would a red state with the cheapest landfill make it pencil?
Those phenomenal questions. Again, those are things that I would like to ultimately have them be able to address, and unfortunately, we just don't have that information for you tonight. We did get the MOU last week after packets, I believe, were going out, so we did not get a chance to really spend a whole lot of time reviewing that from legal side. So if you did want to pass the MOU tonight, we would ask that you pass it contingent upon... Oh, they don't have it?
No, we don't have it.
Didn't get in the packet, okay.
I just have a quick comment. I personally, I don't think it's really worth spending a lot of staff time. We have so much going on in the city, so many priorities. I don't see this as a priority. Just a little background. I have connections to the Siemens organization from a past employment, and I reached out to them out of Germany. It is highly subsidized by the German government by almost 70%. That's not being considered here, and it's a force mandated in the legislature there, and so it's basically how the guy at Siemens was saying it was a family member who started this technology, got the government to force it, and then pay for it. And so, to Jim's point, at $100, we're like a fourth of that. It just doesn't make sense for us to spend a lot of time moving forward. I'm not interested at this time. It doesn't mean I wouldn't be interested in the future when technology catches up with their big vision, but I just don't see how it's to any advantage. I mean, if I was maybe New York City and I didn't have a lot of land, but I have a lot of desert here that down the road can be purchased too for more.
Supporting children in school at $1 a ton across the scale.
Yes, that's true. We are supporting the education system in Utah with what we're doing, but I just feel like it's just not necessarily worth our time and effort when we have so many things coming down the pipe, and I'm sensitive to all of your time, and I just feel like at this point it's probably sort of a nice to have a conversation, and maybe at a conference if it come up, attend that session or whatever, but right now taking a lot of Kevin's time, especially from a legal perspective, and yours, Mark, and even Owen, I don't know how much he's been involved too. It just doesn't seem like, and from my personal opinion, it's not worth our time right now.
I would also just question, if this were such a great thing, why North Point themselves wouldn't be looking at doing it and making money themselves off of it? I mean, that's their whole...
That's who Mark Huyers, he looked into it for.
Oh, okay.
But he's willing to come talk to us. It's fair to hear both sides.
Yeah, anyway, I'm kind of in the same agreement with Michael, as it's maybe not quite ripe enough for us to bother with our time right now.
So if I could, would you like both presentations to come back at another time, or are we not interested in that at this point?
Okay. I'm here, not interested from the council.
Okay. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. We have need for closed session tonight.
We do.
Well, that was a resolution. Do we need to just vote it down?
No, there wasn't an actual resolution.
Oh, on my amended, on the amended agenda that was sent out, it's showing it as Resolution R 18-41.
You failing to pass it is enough of an action.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, we'll take a short break and then we'll go into the closed session.